7-0 passes.
We'll move to item 11, resolutions. 11A, renaming the ice rink the Earl E. Schaefer Municipal Ice Rink. 11A,
Whereas the Council of the City of Bethlehem is desirous of renaming the ice rink in honor of Earl E. Schaefer, the former mayor of the city, to recognize and honor Mayor Schaefer for his support for the construction of recreational facilities in the Monocacy complex. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bethlehem that the ice rink is hereby renamed Earl E. Schaefer Municipal Ice Rink. Resolution 11A is sponsored by David D. Jacinto and Gordon Mauer.
comments? Mr. Mauer?
I have a curious question to ask. How many people here knew Earl Schaefer? Is there anybody? One? Two? Anybody else out there? We played basketball together, so that's why he would remember Earl Schaefer. Well, I guess I'm one of the few ones that is still around.
That's a good or bad thing, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. It says something though. Earl Schaefer actually was a neighbor of mine when I was growing up as a little boy, and I played with his kids, and we were friendly. And I feel good about it. When I look at Earl Schaefer, and I look at the key things about him that really will rest in the history books. Certainly, one of the major ones has to do with our new form of government. Earl Schaefer was a very strong supporter of quote-unquote the strong mayor form of government. And he worked for it. He battled an election on it. He was defeated in the election by Paul Janney. How many knew Paul Janney? Two who fall into that category as well. He fit into that category. He fought Paul Janney and lost to him in the primary. And as a result, Paul Janney's key people followed Gordon Payroll, and Gordon Payroll was able to beat him because of the split within the party. So that was an interesting sidelight. That he worked very hard, and he almost won, but he did not. The second thing that he was known for certainly would be the athletic complex out here off of Village Mill Road. Earl Schaefer supported the swimming pool, the ice skating rink, the golf course, and worked diligently for good athletic programs within the city of Bethlehem, which made a difference to our citizens. And we have great facilities there today because of it. He was also known particularly for his involvement with the Water Authority and the Penn Forest Reservoir, and he was the Water Authority executive for many years and did many things. He continued to serve the community with the great water system that we have in Bethlehem. And he was also instrumental in helping to put the city center complex together at this location and this style. This was all kind of credited with Gordon Payroll, but Earl Schaefer really was the one that was responsible for most of it. It seems to me it's appropriate to name something that he had the most to do with, and that, of course, would be the complex, the athletic complex, including the ice skating rink, which is out in Wilson Park. So it's appropriate today that we take the next step in naming this after our resolution in the past who worked hard for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky. Aye. Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donches.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
11B, authorizing a use permit agreement for public property for Arts Quest, Christkindl Mart 2010, Peach Fest 2010, and Countdown in Downtown for 2010.
Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bethlehem that the mayor and controller are authorized to execute a use permit agreement and related documents with Arts Quest for Christkindl Mart 2010, Peeps Fest 2010, and the Countdown in Downtown 2010, as noted in the resolution. The resolution is sponsored by David D. Jacinto and Jean Belinsky.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DeGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donches.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
11C, transfer of funds for Main Street parking.
Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bethlehem that $60,000 in non-utility capital budget be transferred as follows: $60,000 from unprogrammed funds to ice rink repairs, $60,000 from ice rink repairs to Main Street parking. Resolution 11C is sponsored by David DeGiacinto and Eric Evans.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DeGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donches.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
11D, certificate of appropriateness for 42 West Market Street.
A certificate of appropriateness under the provisions of the Act of the Pennsylvania Legislature and Bethlehem Ordinance, whereas it is proposed to install solar panels on a flat roof garage at the rear of the property at 42 West Market Street. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bethlehem that a certificate of appropriateness is granted for the work. Resolution 11D is sponsored by David DeGiacinto and Jean Belinsky.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DeGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donches.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
11E, certificate of appropriateness for 133 Wall Street.
A certificate of appropriateness under the provisions of the Act of the Pennsylvania Legislature and Bethlehem Ordinance, whereas it is proposed to replace 4 existing windows on the facade at 133 Wall Street and 2 existing windows on the rear facing Milton Street. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bethlehem that a certificate of appropriateness is granted for the work. Resolution 11E is sponsored by David DeGiacinto and Jean Belinsky.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DeGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donches.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
Thank you. We'll move to item 12, new business, setting the date for the adoption of the 2011 budget. The chair will accept a motion from Mr. Evans and second by Mr. Mauer to set the date for the adoption of the 2011 budget on Tuesday, December 21st, 2010 at 7 p.m. in Town Hall. I ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DeGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donches.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
Committee announcements, Mr. Mauer.
The Human Resources and Environmental Committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, November the 23rd, 2010, at 7 o'clock in Town Hall.
And the purpose of that meeting will be to review the budget positions. Mr. Reynolds, announcement on finance.
Ms. Beaconcock, do we have confirmation on, no finance committee meeting at this time?
Okay, thank you. Any other new business, members of council, new business?